Hi everyone, welcome back to another lightsaber video. This is RPK Customs' latest resin stunt hilt for Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, and he has given it the name Like My Father Before Me. I just received this in the mail a few days ago, so thank you very much, Ryan. I will leave a link as usual in the description down below for Ryan's website, RPK Customs. You'll find a lot of great hilts there, not just resin stunt props, but he does metal hilts, some greeblies and accessories. Really great website, a ton of good stuff. Highly recommended. So I'll leave a link and you can take a look and see what you like. But this is his latest run and or the latest entry in that line of resin stunt hilts. He's done a fantastic job, and you can get this either completely finished, painted by Ryan himself, or you can get a bare one and kind of do it yourself, have a little fun with it, or honestly you can get both. I'm actually considering picking up another one that's raw and unpainted and just having a bit of fun with it. I mean, the good thing about these resin hilts is that they're very affordable, unlike a lot of the metal replicas in the market, which, you know, not all of us can afford high-end ones. But with resin props, I mean, you're talking about, you know, $100 on average. I can't remember exactly what this cost me. It might have been $150 because it was painted, so I'm sure the unpainted one is half of that. So you can always pick up one and just kind of do it on your own, and then kind of give it your own take of paint, weathering, the way you want to finish it. But yeah, this one's completely finished. I'm just gonna kind of go over all the different, so you can see it's got the flat emitter without the nipple, just like the V3, and then just a standard kind of gold paint. It's basically a V3 style paint job, because all of these resin hilts that were seen in Return of the Jedi were probably cast from the mold of the V3. You can see the Graflex, the upside down, or the Graflex sample, the upside down stamping, and the three circular holes there. And then the V3 style clamp card, which this isn't obviously a card, it's just paint, but he's done a great job painting this with a kind of a flat black background and some weathered gold traces, and then some sort of raised silver solder type traces there at the end. So it's a really beautiful hilt, lots of detail. I really like that seam line that runs top to bottom all the way down on both sides. And this is very likely to be accurate to the prop, because, as I said, this, I mean, the V3, the original V3, this is the metal V3, and it did have a seam line from when it was cast from Obi-Wan Kenobi's stunt hilt. So this is the metal V3. So this was what Luke used throughout the duel against Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. This was the Throne Room bladed stunt hilt that was used for the duel. But the reason that they created this resin prop was that it had to look very similar to the V3, and it's much lighter. I mean, this thing is heavy, and it would have a blade and all of that. This is very lightweight. I think the reason that it was probably created in the first place was that for that shot where at the end of the duel Luke cuts off Vader's hand, so all we've seen throughout the duel scene till then is either the V3 or the V2 at some point when he kind of turns it off. But at the end of the duel, when he defeats Vader, cuts off his hand, and then turns it off, and the Emperor's talking to him and says, blah blah blah, fulfill your destiny, etc. And then he says, never, I'll never turn to the dark side. And then he throws it, he kind of tosses it to the side. I think from that shot on, from when it's turned off and it's in his hand, and he's kind of looking at Vader's hand, and you can kind of see him turning the saber slightly there. We can clearly see from that angle, we can see the clamp card, we can see the traces, and then he throws it away. And we can also see the gold of the neck, but we don't see much else. So we kind of see it that way. And this is what he's got in his hand at that point. And then he throws it to the side. And I'm sure the reason that they did that is, you know, to avoid damaging a functional saber with, you know, rods and things like that. And they also, I think at that point, they probably made the decision by Return of the Jedi that all of the hilts are going to be preserved to showcase in various tours and things like that. So there's no way that they would just have Mark Hamill throw this to the side and end up damaging it. But also, more importantly, is to prevent injury. I mean, this thing is so heavy that you can imagine if, you know, the actors are surrounded by crew members and camera equipment and things like that. If this gets thrown against someone, I would imagine if it hit someone, one of the crew members, I think George Lucas would have had to some serious lawsuits to settle. So I think a resin prop was the answer for that, because it's very lightweight. If it breaks, it breaks. It just goes in the trash. It's, you know, and it's not going to injure anyone, even with direct impact. I mean, this thing is so lightweight. So yeah, I think this is why they created this. And it looks, I mean, seamless from one take to the next. When the lightsaber is on, it would be the metal hilt. As soon as it turned off, they cut. He holds this in his hand, and then he says that line and throws it to us. So no one would ever notice. And in fact, a lot of us didn't. We all assumed that it was a V3 that he had at that scene. But, you know, with a little bit more research and things like that, it did transpire that for that shot, it was a resin copy of the V3. This is the third and final resin hilt that Ryan is doing for Luke Return of the Jedi. These are his previous two. I have both, and I've covered both in detail in previous videos. You can see they're all very, very similar because they're all based on the V3, but with some notable differences. This one here is the R2D2 saber. Again, same sort of style, V3 with a flat emitter. This is much more heavily weathered, and it's hollow on the bottom because this would have had to be fit into something, some sort of propeller in R2 Dome, so he can shoot it out for Luke to catch. So this is the R2D2 resin stunt. This one is the resin belt hanger for the sail barge. This was hung on Luke's belt, and therefore it has a D-ring. And it's a full part. It doesn't have a hole like that one. It's solid. So this was hung on Luke's belt when he jumps to the side of the sail barge. This one has a nipple, so it would look a bit more like the V2, I guess, because the V2 is a belt hanger, so they probably wanted, although it was cast from the V3 mold, they probably wanted it to look more like the V2, so it would have that emitter nipple, so it would look like the V2, which is a belt hanger, and the gaffer tape and so on. So this one looks slightly different. And finally, the one that we just talked about, which is the Throne Room resin stunt, which is almost identical to the metal V3 in every way. And the purpose of this one was just for Luke to say those famous words, "I am a Jedi like my father before me," and then throw it to the side. And that's the only shot we see this hilt in. But yeah, fantastic detail there by Ryan. not much more to say about these. There is one more resin prop from Return of the Jedi that I don't have. It's not Luke's, it's actually Vader's. And it's only there in the scene where his hand is cut off. Essentially, he's holding a resin stunt hilt. That's a copy of the square shroud stunt saber. I don't have that one, but Ryan also does that one. So if you're going to collect all the kind of, if your collection is everything Return of the Jedi or all the resin props or anything like that, then RPK Customs is the place to go. So I'll leave a link, as I said, in the description down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you so much, Ryan, for taking this on board. I know we've had a chat about this, and it was really nice of you to kind of be open to investigating this and doing your own research and gathering reference photos. I know there's not many, but you did a great job. I'm very, very pleased with it. So thanks a lot, and thank you for all of these, actually. And yeah, for everyone else, hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to leave questions, comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.